Hey everybody, Vince Dowd, and I want to come to you today and talk about what's going on in the culture of shame. All of a sudden today, we have a shaming culture, and I want to talk about how this is impacting people on many levels, including energetically, including consciousness. And so I'm going to bring up some topics on shame and the shame culture. So stick around. And by the way, if you're coming on, definitely let me know that you're watching. If you're watching in my group, make sure you hit the StreamYard icon so that I know you're chatting with me. But we'll be back right after this. So what's really interesting today is we see more and more that there's a culture, many call it the cancel culture, the shame culture. It's a culture of really call outs. And I wanted to bring it to your attention because I think it's very damaging on so many levels. And at the end of the day, what I think people don't understand is this whole call out, this whole putting people in shame is actually more detrimental to those who are shaming than those who are being shamed. And I want to come at this from a conscious angle and understanding what that means. So I'm going to show you a graph. If you haven't seen it before, I think it's really important to understand that our culture and our society is really one. So when I'm watching on Facebook, for example, and I see people calling out other people or other ideas, and they're doing it in such a way to make them feel bad or make them feel shame. And I want to make it clear that a lot of people don't know that shame is one of the most low vibrations on the emotional scale. It's very damaging. It's very damaging to society. It's very damaging to the consciousness. It's very damaging to all of us together because it creates a large separation. And that large separation will propagate more problems, more division, more anger, more hate, more violence. So I want to bring this to your attention. So if you're coming on, make sure you say hi. Let me know you're watching. If you're watching on replay, let me know that by hashtag Authentic Elevation. Let me show you, obviously here, this is a representation of shame, obviously, but I want to show you the graph, the chart. And this is really important to look at. So this would be a cone of the emotional scale. Now, if we want to elevate our thoughts and our emotions, it's going to take us to a different level than most people. And it's not an easy game. It takes work and it takes consistency. But a lot of people grew up in shame. I know my mom had a lot of shame growing up. And when we adopt that frequency and that vibration, it actually resonates from us. When we operate internally in shame-based feelings, we're like antenna that emit this feeling to people around us. And it really does damage to ourselves and to others. So if you look at the chart here, you can see shame vibrates at about 20 hertz. I think it's hertz or megahertz. I apologize. I don't know if it's mega or hertz, but that's the lowest level. And society itself will never, ever achieve peace, harmony, or anything when our frequency is operating on shame. And I've had people attempt to shame me on my Facebook wall, and I'm pretty shocked about it. But then again, I'm not, because I guess people don't know what they do. You know, I realize that the more that we focus on consciousness, the more that we work on ourselves to elevate, it's a journey, right? So it's going to take some time for people to realize what they do. And since 95% of our day, we're not running on our own thinking and our own conscious thoughts, we're running on past programs. We're running on autopilot. And if you grew up in an environment where you were in shame and you were in guilt and you were abused and you were dysfunctional and you were poured on with shame and you've never worked on that, then the frequency you're going to emit to society is shame. And that shame is detrimental to you and it's detrimental to the people around you. So I'm going to highly encourage that we elevate and go higher. And there's a way to do that. And I just want to share it with you. But first, I wanted to kind of really mention what's really going on here. So we have a society today that on different fragments, and I don't know at what level this is, but I do know that there are a lot of people that are very vocal, that are angry, that are making sure they call people out, that are calling them out on politics, calling them out on their worldview, calling them out on their history or their ancestry. And yet it's not even real. Because here's the fact. The fact is, if we're going, I'm coming at this from a conscious place now. So if you're going to look at this in the form of mind, in the form of duality and physicality, then that's probably not going to resonate with you. But I want to take you deeper. I want you to consider that as you look around at the planet and you see people and you see places, you see things, there's a separation between everything because we've learned to focus on the seen. And the seen is not real. The things that we see, the solid objects, they're not real. These are merely projections of the mind. And so when we're looking at separation, we look at ourselves and say, I stop here, my skin ends right here. So if my skin ends right here, then where does everything else begin, right? And when we see the world through those eyes, we're seeing the world through separation. The eyes of duality cause a separation, but it too is an illusion. So when we're attacking other people, calling them out for an idea or for what you perceive or somebody perceives is truth, remember, that's a perspective coming from one point. It's not the truth and it's not their perspective. So I think the only way we're really going to be able to heal is to really look at this from a place of unity and understand that we are not our bodies and we are not even our thoughts. And if we're not our bodies and if we're not our thoughts, then who are we? And that's where we got to go deeper to look at the space, all the space around us and the space inside of us is the same. There is no inner world. There is no outer world. There is only one. And it's one energy dynamic. It is one life, one beingness. And what happens, and let me see if I can make this really clear from my perspective, and I would encourage you to meditate on this and find out for yourself if this resonates. So the being of oneness, you could call it source, you could call it God, you could call it whatever, but what it is this all-knowing, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, all-powerful, everywhere at once. That is truth. Now, we try to define truth with our mind, with our thinking mind, and a lot of people put a lot of value in our thoughts. And the problem with that is our thoughts are absolutely wrong most of the time. They're absolutely wrong. And so when we're relying on thought, I want you to imagine, if you would, all consciousness, omnipresent, omnipotent, everything that is knowing, it cannot be deciphered in the physical realm because it is diluted. And so what we do, the first thing that happens is the self, the presence behind all of our noise. The first thought that ever came was the thought of I, the I thought. And the I, everybody has the I thought. No matter who it is on this planet, they're always thinking about I. And once you have the I, I'm going to use this little pen, but let's say that's the I thought, right? So from this thought of I, it comes out of the self. So we have this consciousness, this vast expanse of oneness that you are and I am. This is all one. We are the same. Every human being is the same. But what happens is this I comes out of the ever-present presence, and this would be called the ego. The ego is all knowledge, but when it comes out, it becomes a fraction of knowledge. And then from I, all the other thoughts protrude outward. I am, and then you add something to it. And it could be positive or negative. And just by being positive and negative means it's not real. Because if it's positive or negative, it is in duality. It is now not one, it is separated. And with separation comes more separation. So out of the I am rich. I am sick. I am fat. I am poor. I am a victim. I'm not as educated as other people. Oh, I have more education. I have 3 degrees. I have more money than most people. I am homeless. I'm not as good as my sister. So what happens now is this I is constantly talking to you day in and day out. From the time you wake up in the morning and even in your dreams, the I is talking to you. And the problem that society has, and the reason we are getting further away from truth, with every person that calls people out and tries to shame them and drop them down on this scale and say, you know what, you're not good because of whatever. When you drop people down on that scale, what's going to happen? Where is that? Over here. Yeah. Oh, right there. When you drop people down on that scale, you're actually hurting them. But it's not just hurting them, you're hurting yourself. Because what you're doing is you're creating more separation between you and somebody else. You're creating less communication, less harmony, and more ability for more separation, more violence, and more pain. So you are the antenna, and you have a choice to go up the scale, right? You can go up to the place of enlightenment. You can go up to the place of joy or love. And when you emit those emotions will impact lives, because there is only one life. There's not a black life and a white life. There's not an Asian life or a plant life. There is only one life. Life itself is an energetic, free-flowing, divine knowledge and being. And it animates itself in every object that we see. But every object that we see is actually a projection of who we are. So if the world is like a mirror and we're projecting ourselves looking at it, we're seeing a mirror. But we don't see the mirror. Let me show you this. 1 second. Let me grab this. So I wanted to show you. So here's the mirror, right? That's the magnified part and the other part. So the mirror. Now, if I'm looking at this mirror, right? I don't know if you can see it right there. When I'm looking at the mirror, or when you look at the mirror, the question is, are you seeing the mirror, or are you seeing you in the mirror? Think about it. Every morning you get up, you look in the mirror. Do you see the mirror, or do you see you in the mirror? Type it in right now. Do you see you, or do you see the mirror? And this is a really good question, because what it comes down to is this. You do not see the mirror, and you do not see you. You see a reflection of yourself, which is not you. But so many people understand that if you're getting up in the morning and you're looking in the mirror and you want to put makeup on or brush your hair or whatever, you're not going to do it to the mirror, because nothing's going to happen. You can't change the mirror, because that is a reflection of who you are. Everybody knows that. I mean, you all know that, correct? Wonderful. Felicia says, I see myself. And again, Felicia, it's not yourself. It's actually a representation of yourself. So here's the interesting thing that happens. When we know in the morning, any lady that's watching, if you got up and you put lipstick on that mirror, you're looking at the mirror, right? You put lipstick on the mirror when you're seeing yourself. For a moment, it looks like you have lipstick on if you hold still because you're standing in a reflection and the lips have been outlined. You could not brush your hair so well, but you could put makeup on the mirror. Here's the thing though, once you step away from the mirror, you have no makeup on. So what you did is you didn't change you, you tried to change the reflection of you. And this is what's happening in the world today. Most people are not waking up to the lack of consciousness that's causing the bigger problem. If we want to change the world, it does not change out there. All people are trying to do is put lipstick on the mirror. And the more lipstick you put on the mirror, you might feel like you're doing something, but you're doing nothing except making a dirty mirror. And that's what's happening in society. So when I see the call out culture, when I see people trying to shame people, for example, I'm white. I will hold no shame for being white. I will not allow myself to be shamed for being who I was created to be in this projection. Nor should you be shamed for anybody you are, any color you are, any status you are, any background you have, any lineage you come from. Do not allow people to shame you, and do not shame people. This is a sickness, and this will cause damage on every level of your being, on every level of society, and it is not healthy. And it's propagated and pushed by many people that run universities. Many people out there who are educators are pushing this. Many people in politics, many people in the media. These are the people who we are listening to? I don't think so. I think we need to look at this, not from the eyes of duality, not from these two eyes, because these two eyes will deceive you, but we need to look at this from our heart. And we need to ask ourselves a real question here. What level of this scale are we on? When we're sending our signals out, and I'm talking to myself too, because believe me, I know that I can get reactive. I can get reactive. But the more I meditate, the more I spend time, and I realize that the I, the ego, here's what it wants you to do. This is really powerful. When you talk to yourself all day long and you keep talking to yourself in your head, maybe it's not out loud, but a lot of times it is, but you keep saying, I'm going to do this. I want that. The question is, have you ever asked yourself, who is the I? Who's speaking? Who is that voice in your head that keeps saying I? And if you've thought about it, that may not help. But when you meditate on it, you'll start to follow the roots back to I. So here's the way that I used to do it. I used to sit when I tried to meditate. I struggled for a long time. And I would sit with my meditation, close my eyes, and the voices would start talking in my head. If you've tried to meditate, let me know if you've done that before. Type it in over here. Let me know. Have you sat down and you anticipate you're going to go into meditation? You're going to get some chill time. You're going to dial into oneness. And what happens is you sit there and listen to yourself talk. And then you go, who's talking? And then somebody says, I'm talking. And you're like, oh, well, who are you? And they say, well, who are you? And you start having this conversation in your head. And then some other voices come up and you start having all these conversations in your head. Have you ever had that happen? And then what happens, or for a long time happened to me, is I started to follow my thoughts. So I would think, well, I'm sitting here and I'm going to meditate, and I'd do my little sitting. And then a thought would come up, well, you really are busy today. You need to, get up and get the house clean. You need to go out and get some things done. And then what happens is you follow those thoughts, and those thoughts take you further and further away from the purpose of you sitting there to meditate. And it's like a tree branching out. So the eye starts to shoot branches like a tree. And each of those branches are a thought. And what you do is you start to follow the thoughts. And then those thoughts lead to more thoughts. And you end up on this journey of thinking. Now, the more thinking that we do, the less presence that we have. The less ability we have to touch the truth. So what we need to do is be able to turn the question around. Instead of going outward and expanding like the mind likes to do, to get us chasing all these ideas and thoughts, to get us blaming, to get us shaming people, to get us off track, to get us separating from everybody, to get us judging. That's what it loves to do. And that's okay, because everybody has the same issue. I don't care who you are, where you are in the world, we all have the same issue. We have this judgmental mind, this noisy mind. It never quiets. It always wants to control you. And the mind is simply a fragmented illusion of all knowledge of the self. The real self, our true nature, is all-knowing, all-seeing, all-present. But when it actually comes up and tries to show you this through the I, the ego, what happens is it fragments. And then our brain acts like a reduction valve, and it tries to reduce all this information into fragments. And so what we have is a fragmented view of the world. It's very much like a broken mirror. And then we chase all these broken thoughts and these broken ideas. And what happens is we lose ourselves. And we think we're not connected. We think we're different. But that's because we're looking at the world through our eyes in particles. We're looking at the world of manifestation. And because mind is very powerful, mind uses imagination. Mind uses memory. Mind uses all kinds of areas to create. And because we're not conscious of our chase of the mind, we're actually creating constantly. 95% of the day, we're creating with these thoughts in this. We're putting emotion behind them. And so the I, the way we need to perhaps, and I would recommend for you, is instead of following the thoughts outward, start to ask the question, who am I? And then every time a thought comes up to take you and lead you astray, ask yourself, who is that just said that? Who is the I behind that? For example, when I got up this morning to meditate, the first 30 or 40 minutes are usually very hard because the mind is agitated. Maybe I was dreaming, but what happens is my mind starts to come up with all kinds of things. My body says, you're tired, your legs hurt, get up, or you got something to do, or you're hungry. All these ideas are coming in. And what I used to do is follow those. Then I would cut my meditation short and go get a coffee and do my thing. But now I sit with it and I just ask myself, okay, so my leg hurts. Who's telling me my leg hurts? And when I ask the question, the thought stops going outward and it comes back inward. And I bring it back, I implode it on myself and I say, who is I? Who's telling me my leg hurts? Who's telling me that I should get up and go do work? Who's making me feel insecure that I have so much to do? And the more I ask that question, what happens is all the thoughts that move away from I come back and they disappear. So if you think of I like an antenna, you can't shoot any thoughts out into the universe and follow them into a trail of deception or illusions and constant noise in your head if you keep bringing everything back to I. Who am I? And once you do that, the I starts to reveal itself, and you start to touch the part of you, the true nature of you that's not the illusion. And what happens is you'll start to experience tremendous oneness with everything and tremendous bliss. You'll start to understand, not from a mental level, but from a real level, that you are that. And you'll start to realize as well that what we're saying is very powerful, that our words have meaning, and our words are just the mind trying to tell you something, right? So if you have the mind which is fragmented and we put it into words, words cannot communicate very well. So the great yogis, the great gurus of the ancients of India and so forth would say that the best way to communicate is through silence. I never really understood that. I know when I was at the ashram, they did sacred silence, and I didn't understand because my brain was so noisy. It was so noisy, and I couldn't seem to sit still, and I couldn't understand why people wanted just silence until I sat with myself in meditation and continued to ask who I am. And as these thoughts started to drop away from me, and my breathing slowed to a pace where I almost am not breathing, and I have hardly any thoughts filling my mind, and my breath is down to a very, very minimal amount of air coming into my body, everything went silent. And I had this amazing, and I do this when I meditate, this amazing experience of who we are. And the ultimate goal, really, is to take that presence with me every day in everything I do. And if we could all do that, that's where the power is. In fact, if you think about it, if people want to make a big difference on the planet for equality or for making sure somebody's lives matter, it's not going to come through our spoken word or our agitated mind. It will come through silence. Just like Gandhi, we can have a mass group of people who sit in silence, destroying nothing, saying nothing, doing nothing. It is in our doing that we lose our way. It is in our doing that we actually resist what is meant to be. The formula we have in society, especially in capitalism, is wrong. The formula we have in society is go do more so you can be more. If you do more, you'll have more, and then you can be more. But that's a lie. That's the lie that they want us to believe, because if you're doing more, it keeps you distracted from yourself. Thank you, Monica. If you're doing more, you're thinking more. And if you're thinking more and doing more, you're not in the state of being. Now, this was the hardest thing for me to learn, and this is the most powerful thing that I'm still learning. And that is, I need to surrender my doing and my having to being. And as I spend time with my true nature and myself, that I that I think I am, the I that you believe that you are, when you bring it back to the I, it will submerge itself back into the self. And all of a sudden, what happens is the ego is destroyed. And the only thing that exists is the isness that you are. And when we can operate in that place, then we see and we know everything is one, everything is us. But the challenge is to get past the I. And the I is a hard thing to get past. But to get past that, we need to stop doing so much. There's not anything we can think, say, or do to find the answer. In fact, I used to believe that if I read more books, I would be smarter. If I worked harder than everybody else, I would be more successful. And all these things are programs that were created by society, and it keeps people really busy and really educated in their mind. But here's the truth that I'm learning. The more that we do and the more that we think, the more noise we're creating, the more distraction that we have. The more things that we have, often it's more distraction from ourselves. The real magic will come in the moments that you sit alone, close your eyes, and listen to the silence. And when thoughts arise, to ask yourself, who is thinking that thought? Take me to the person that's thinking that thought. Take me to the source of that thought. Who is the thinker of the thoughts? And as we sit there longer, for hours maybe, it will start to reveal itself. The only way we're going to heal this planet is to heal ourselves. I can't fix capitalism. I can't fix anybody outside of me. It's like fixing the mirror. All I can do is go inside of myself and have revealed to me the problems that I create with my mind, with my thinking, with my talking, with my doing, all distracting me from the very point of being. We are here to be. And in total being, we will have inspired doing. So there's a story, if you've done yoga. In fact, if you've done yoga, let me know. If you're a yogi, and I mean, have you done yoga? Are you a yogi? A lot of people in America think doing yoga means you do the asana or the moves of yoga. That's not what I'm talking about. Doing yoga is not just doing moves. So the story I heard at the ashram was that yoga, the moves, the asana, whenever you're doing the moves, those actually are what came out of being. So as the yogis would sit in meditation, energy would move through them. And as energy moved through them, they would start to do moves as energy releases, because the body does need to move because we're in a physical space. But the purpose of yoga is not to do the moves or to do the moves well. The purpose of yoga is to be present, to notice sensation in the body, and to still the modifications of the mind. So the only purpose is to watch ourselves, to observe ourselves, to watch my thinking. And when I'm in judgment, to be conscious enough to see myself and to see the thought that's judging you. And if I can see the thought that's loving you, or that's judging you, or that's separating from you, I love you too, Deborah, thank you. If I can see myself in self-observation, then I can change. But if I don't take myself into a daily accounting through self-observation, then I'm just allowing the program that was installed in me to run my life. And if you every day get up and allow your programs, which are not you, to run your life, you're going to keep going around the same cycle over and over again, operating at these low levels. Shame, guilt, anger. These are levels that people operate at in society today. This is not where we want to be. This is where we suffer. We don't want to get by with pride or courage. We want to elevate. So to elevate, we need to move up here to love and joy and peace and enlightenment. When we move to these levels, it's all going to change. So what we need to do, if you want to take this journey, is to wake up in the morning, and before you do anything other than maybe go to the restroom, is to sit down with yourself in silence and begin investigating who you are. And look at the mind. Notice how noisy it is. Notice, like 1,000 unbridled horses, how it wants to take you in all these directions. And then all we have to do is ask, who is that? Who is the I? And then, as these thoughts come up, we can change our thoughts in the morning to create our day. If we notice negative thoughts coming up, like, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to do this, I don't feel good today, we can change those thoughts. And we can just say, I choose to be amazing today. I'm going to get a lot accomplished by being present today. The more awareness I bring to the situation, the more I will notice the people in my life that are trying to bring messages to me. The more energy will reveal itself to me. The more awareness I have of my thinking, the more mindful I am, the more I will get done. But I don't have to do it. It will be done through me as I allow space for the energy to move. And obviously we can create a feeling along with visualization of what our day looks like, how it feels to be in that state of love or joy, how it feels to be in that state of reason or enlightenment. And once we feel that in our body, and once we see in our mind the way we want our day to shape up, the amazing relationships we want to create, the health we want to abound, the success that is our birthright, all this, as it comes up, we can sign into the universe with our pen a signature of gratitude. And that gratitude is the period that tells energy that you already have it. It's already done. It's manifested and you're thankful. And even though we don't see it, it's on its way, because once you've said it, once you've seen it, and once you've emotionalized it, those 3 steps are the key to manifestation of everything. Now, what if you started your day every single day that way? What would change your life? Thank you, Claudia. How would your life change if at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day before you go to bed, you took 10 minutes, visualized your day, you could even speak it out loud so that word becomes form. And then you emotional connect to that day. And you know what? You can even, at the end of the day, if you had a day that you feel was not great, you can recreate the day before you go to bed. Envision your day the way you desired it to be, and immediately erase the day that was not the way you wanted it to be. Don't give it energy, because energy follows attention. Don't give it attention. Don't give it energy. Bring it back and ask yourself, how was my day really? And create the day that you wanted. Then give thankfulness and see it, feel it, and then go to sleep with that. Maybe even create tomorrow before you start. Now, if you do this, things will shift in your life. You'll start to feel different. The way you show up with people will be different. And when people sense the I that's coming from you, it'll be a different I. It'll be an I that's present, an I that's self-observant, an I that investigates, who am I? You might find your thoughts becoming less, your stress subsiding. You'll realize that you are enough. You've always been enough. Everything you've always needed or desired, you already have. The illusion is you can get it if you make more money. You can get it if you rise to this status. You can get it if you have the right body. You can get it if you know the right people. That's all illusion. You already have it. Once you find out who the I is, it drops you into the self, and you will know that everything you've been searching for your entire life, you've always had, because it is you. The feeling of abundance is already yours. The love you seek is already yours, because you are that. What if the world started looking at it that way? What if we turned off the media, which is hard, and started to resonate at a higher level? What if we took control of the world? What if we, enlightened beings who are awakening, said, no longer am I going to take part in negative information that keeps trying to flood us with separation and division. Instead, when I look in the eyes of another human being, I'm going to look for the I that is in me. Because the I that is in me is the same I that is in them. My consciousness, looking at your consciousness through the windows of the soul, when I can see me in you, and you can see me in yourself, then we're waking up. Everything else is distraction to keep us from our power. Now, it's not easy, because right away we want to judge people. Thank you, Blue. I think you can save it when it's done. Right away we judge people. Now, this is what I noticed. If I get up in the morning and I don't do my meditation, if I don't sit for 2 hours in silence, if you can't do it 2 hours, do an hour. Sit through the burn. You've got to sit through the 30 or 40 minutes where your mind is in control and your body wants you to do what it wants you to do. You got to break the habit. And when you sit and burn and sit and control your body and mind, you will drop into the bliss. Now, if I don't do that and I go out to the world and I look at people, immediately my mind starts to judge everything about them. The mind is a mechanism for judgment. It's a fragmented energy that looks for separation because the source of mind is separation. Everything you think is a separate thought. It is all a lie. It's all illusion. The only way you know it's illusion is not to believe me. You'll never believe me. But the only way that you'll know that it's all lies is when you sit with yourself and you ask yourself, who am I? And when the I reveals itself to you, when the I reveals itself to you, you will see everybody is you. And that's why for me, I must go deeper and deeper into my practice so that when I get up and I go out to society, I bring with me that water that I dipped my cup in the morning from the ocean of consciousness. So I remember, instead of judging people for their differences, I look at them for the similarity. And if I just look at their eyes, and I look deep into their eyes, black, white, Asian, poor, rich, homeless, mansion, angry, happy, no matter what the judgments come, when you look into their eyes and you see consciousness staring back at you, when you see all that ever has been, will be, and ever was looking at you, and you're looking back, you realize that consciousness is simply projecting into time and space, here and now, to experience itself. It is a grand game of hide and seek. And once we find who we are, we found ourselves. And the key is to find ourselves in each other and the animals and the plants. There is just one life. Just like electricity moving through a wire that lights up many devices. All the devices are separate. They're different. But the only thing that's real, that animates each of those devices, is the electricity, which is one. The electricity in you, the electricity in me, the life force in all life is but one. And when we get that, not in your mind, because your mind will never get that, when you embody that by sitting with yourself, you will know. And then we can move up on this scale to a different level in society. But it takes all of us to do this one at a time. And we can't change everybody, but we can change ourselves. So I want to thank you. I hope that you'll take some time, and I challenge you tomorrow morning or tonight before you go to bed to carve out an hour for yourself alone, to sit in silence, maybe some light music, non-interruptions, and just to inquire one question. Every time your mind takes you off track, your body wants you to get up, just ask this: who's speaking? Who is it that wants me to get up? Who am I? Who is it that thinks these thoughts? Reveal that to me. Who is the I? And allow yourself to be led down from all the branches to the root where all thoughts come from. And see what happens. Now, it might take you a couple days, maybe a week, to really drop in where you feel and know. But if you can sit through the burn, you'll discipline your mind, and it will break you free. And you'll touch a part of yourself that so many people have never touched. And that's what they're searching for their whole lives, but they don't know it because they're not willing to do the work. And the work is simply sitting still in silence and inquiring, who am I? Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your comments. I love that. Yeah. Thank you all for being here. And I'll be seeing you soon. Have a wonderful day. Bring love to the world because they definitely need it.